Hello, beautiful. Welcome to today's conversation with our special guest, Kristin Layne. Kristin is a feminine embodiment coach, holistic hairstylist, and advocate for women's empowerment. With over 20 years of experience helping women reclaim their sensuality, emotional intelligence, and feminine allure. Through her signature Femme Allure methodology, Kristin guides high-achieving women to heal from trauma, break free from toxic hustle culture, and embrace their cyclical nature, enabling them to step into self-trust, sovereignty, and radiance. She is also the founder of Femme Allure Society, a community focused on shadow work, emotional mastery, and embodied confidence. Beyond her coaching, Kristin is a homeschooling mom of 3, entrepreneur, and visionary committed to a world led by love, connection, and feminine wisdom. I am your host, Shannon Martin, and welcome to today's episode of This Thing Called Wellness. Now, let's listen in. All right, today my guest is Kristin Layne of Somatic Feminine Embodiment Coach. I have known Kristin for a very long time. We met years ago networking. I can't believe it's been 9-10 years now that I've known you, and I have watched you grow and do some amazing things in a holistic area. So today I wanted to talk about the new things that you're doing. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So I wanted to talk about what inspired you to start incorporating somatic work into your coaching and hairstyling practice.
Yeah. So my journey into somatic work started from a deeply personal space. For years, I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, trying to do it all as a mother, the business owner, and the woman who felt like she had to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And just feeling the pressure of trying to keep everything perfect. And that burnout was kind of my wake-up call.
Right.
I didn't have the time for myself, and it was constant doing, and there wasn't enough self-care. There wasn't enough me time, and really the space to take care of my mental health, emotional health, well-being.
Right.
And then came a loss of a pregnancy, which shattered me in 2019, but also opened the door to such a profound healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through that grief that I found my way to a priestess path and began exploring embodiment as a way to reconnect with myself, with my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to slow down. I learned to honor my body's wisdom and to listen and to embrace rest and pleasure as being sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I healed, I realized how disconnected we as women often are from our bodies, from our cycles and our inner rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just knew that I wanted to empower other women to reconnect with their cyclical nature and listening to their bodies and reclaiming their feminine wisdom. So integrating somatic work into my coaching and salon practices became a way of helping women to feel seen and felt and heard and whole, and not just from an outward perspective, but also deep inward experience. Yeah.
Right, because we as women, we do take on a lot, and we have that superwoman syndrome where we have to have the cape on, because I definitely know what it's like to have everything together and trying to keep everything together, especially when you're, a mother and you're working and an entrepreneur and all the things. So that's really, really tough. So can you explain some of the practices that, that you put into place to kind of get yourself to that quiet space?
Yeah, so somatic practices are all about embodiment, and it's fully living in and experiencing the body. So it's not like traditional mind-body approaches where we often focus on managing our thoughts or practicing mindfulness from a cognitive space perspective. Somatic work is a little bit deeper into the body's experience. It's all about noticing sensation, tuning into your emotions that are stored in the body, and then letting the body lead you through your healing process. So if you can think of it as going beyond thinking about change to actually feeling and living it, it's more of a beingness instead of a knowingness. And so the body holds so much wisdom, our joys, our traumas, and everything in between. And these somatic practices help us to tap into that wisdom, into our body's intelligence, in a way that words and mindset work just can't quite touch.
Okay, so what are what are some of the approaches that you talked about?
So I use a lot of techniques with breath work and sound, movement, and touch.
Okay. So is it kind of
really
like
getting to the senses?
Okay, so it's kind of like grounding a bit, like when you're in a space, or is it deeper than grounding?
So it is, because we need to be grounded, or at least, I don't like the word centered, but balancing and centered is kind of like an iffy topic. But when we can get ourselves in the present moment. So when I think of grounding, I think of more of like that present moment space. And when we're able to be present, then we can feel into what's really going on with our body, and we can feel sensation. We can feel a sense of truth as to what's really going on, because sometimes, maybe you've been asked the question of like, how are you today? And, oh, I'm fine. And 9 times out of 10, we are not fine.
Right.
There's something else going on, right?
Right. And we are totally checked out, and you're just sitting there trying to think about like what is really going on. Because I think about what you just said about sensing your pain, or sensing that you have to really go deep within and just kind of, because I just did a training, and it really kind of made you think about where is your pain, and you have to really sit still and be quiet and listen to what is going on inside of your body. So it's something similar to that.
Yes. And it's really being in tune with what's happening right now in the present moment versus what happened before I got on this call, or what happens tomorrow when I go to this event, or it's really focusing on what's here and what's present right now. What do I need right now? And it's just amazing what the body can tell you. There's all these different signals and feelings, and especially our nervous system, that can keep us safe, but also let us know when there's something going on that we need to know about. It will signal us. It'll teach us. And so it's really important with these practices that we connect with the body in that way, so that we can listen to those signals much more clearly without overriding ourselves.
Right. So I know you just mentioned our nervous system. What role does that play in regulating our overall well-being?
So the nervous system is the foundation for everything in somatic work. So when we're stuck in fight and flight or freeze, our bodies are in constant survival mode, and it's impossible to access joy and pleasure or even connection when we're stuck in survival mode. So somatic practices help to regulate the nervous system by creating safety in the body. And so this might look like grounding through breath, or gentle touch, or connecting with nature, or even just taking some breaths and releasing sound. There's a lot going on with our vagus nerve with women. The vagus nerve is connected all the way down to our womb space, the pelvis, and all the way up into our throat. And so as women, we tend to shut off our sound in many different situations. And so when we can activate that sound, it really allows our nervous system to just really come back online. And so when the nervous system is calm, it helps us to be more resilient. And so when things happen, we can pendulate from one side to the other, so that we're not, it's in a way balancing, but it's not so that we can forget what we need either. It's so that we
Okay.
know how to recognize when we are in threat, when we are in fight or flight, so that we know how to regulate ourselves and bring ourselves back to center, in a way. So for me, learning
Oh,
about
wow.
my own nervous system was like a game changer, because during my healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
um, it allowed me to, during the grieving process, to just slow down and grieve and allow myself that space. And then it
Okay.
also allowed me to, after my last pregnancy 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, it allowed me to reconnect with myself in a different
Mm.
way and
Okay.
allow myself to be more gentle as my hormones regulated from having, a baby in my late 30s,
Right.
um, so that I could feel more nourished and safe.
Okay.
And I feel like it's such a big missing piece in a lot of the wellness world and healing, um, for women in all stages.
That's a big missing piece because I've never heard that before. Missing our voices. Now I do know that when we're doing our breath work, that it is you do have to go deep within, into, like say, into your pelvis, into your stomach, and coming out with the breath work, and that really helps me ease my anxiety when I'm having
Mhm.
that issue. And it's amazing that it will calm your nervous system down so that you can be calm and come back to the grounding part and saying, okay, what am I hearing? What am I paying attention to? But I never heard about the voice. Can you explain a little bit
Mhm.
more about the voice? Because that's something new to me.
Yeah. So if you've ever seen a diagram of your vocal cords,
Mm-hmm.
um, they actually match. The vocal cords are very similar to the pelvic floor muscles as well.
Hmm.
And so there's this it's this nerve that's not always stimulated. And so when we can release sound, it just it I don't even know how to explain it sometimes, because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's just so powerful. And the best way I
Right.
can explain it is, for my son, for example. Um, he has a really intense stutter that we've been, working
Mm.
on with speech therapy for several
Right.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to a point where, his speech therapist said, there's nothing else we can do. You're going to have to see a specialist. And
Mm.
so kind of put us in a weird spot, because I thought we were kind of heading in the right direction. So I actually started to look at some of the tools that she had given him already. And
Mm-hmm.
we were still, using those and implementing those every day with him. And then as I was learning the somatic practices and things and using sound to regulate the nervous system, I was recognizing where my son was a little bit kind of anxious when
Mm.
certain questions were being asked, or if he was responding to someone, there would be this tenseness of his body, and he wasn't relaxed when he would speak. And so
Okay.
the stutter would get really intense. So
Mm.
I started doing a practice called vooing with him, where it's an inhale and then you exhale, voo, and doing that,
Mm.
releasing that sound. And we
Mm-hmm.
even played with several different sounds
Okay.
that really relaxed that vagus nerve in his throat. And it allowed
Mm-hmm.
his whole body to just kind of drop and just come into a more relaxed state, to where
Right.
he could slow down and he could get his words out really clearly.
I
So I'm
love
finding
that.
that just that in itself has been huge for him,
That's
and to see
huge.
that in real time, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because my
Yeah.
son had a stutter too, so I wish we'd have known that back then. That's amazing, Kristen. So I love that because I've heard about the vagus nerve, and I'm still researching and learning about that as well. So I love that. And you
Yeah,
mentioned,
and there's a lot
go
of
ahead.
research on the vagus nerve
Mm-hmm.
where it helps your whole body just come back into regulation, where it
Mm-hmm.
helps your digestive system, it can help with
Yes.
migraines. And I mean, it's a whole key to us being anxious, and or even on the opposite end, where there's like the hypo and the hyper, of
Mm-hmm.
depression. And so it can kind of balance you in that way. Just
Yes,
being able
that's
to
what
release that sound.
That's what I was looking to it for, because I really want to balance my depression out. And I kept hearing about the vagus nerves. I was like, ooh, okay. So it is really in depth as to how many layers it is to what's going on with you internally. And it's
Yes.
amazing. So you mentioned your shadow work. So tell us a little bit about that.
Shadow work.
He said, what?
Oh, I love shadow work. I really do. So the shadow work is such a beautiful exploration, I feel. I feel like when I first came into like the personal development world, it was out of being like this little Dora the Explorer of just looking for things and putting things together and trying to figure out, who I am and why am I here and what am I supposed to do in the world and how can I help people,
Right.
And I think I had gotten so used to doing my day-to-day job as a hairstylist that I needed something to occupy me. And so there was this need for more personal development. And so
Gotcha.
the first time I ever really heard about shadow work, even though I've been doing shadow work for a long time, just didn't know it. One of my friends had me read a book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers.
Okay.
Trying to think of it. Debbie Ford is the author.
Okay.
And that book, I think I read it in like a day because I just couldn't get enough of it.
Okay.
And it was just so interesting to me how we take the things as we're growing up as what is safe and what's not safe, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And that becomes part of who we are. And those things that weren't allowed, we might shove into the back closet, the basement, and we don't even realize how much potential is laying in that dark space, per se, in the shadows.
Right.
So the shadow work, it's not anything bad. It's actually super good. And it's just really about peeling back the layers of who you are and being able to be honest with yourself. That's the biggest piece, I think, with somatics and with shadow work is just the ability to start being really, really honest with yourself, being honest about what you want, what you desire, what you need. And what I'm finding is that a lot of women don't know what they even need.
Absolutely not.
Because I didn't.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I'm on that journey now, trying to figure it out. It
is.
It's really a thing because we're nurturing other people and we're not nurturing ourselves. And like you said, you're pushing it into that closet, and by the time you figure it out, you're like, I'm 50-ish years old, and I'm trying to decide on what I want with my life. So, and then you have to, like you say, and being honest with yourself and real with yourself, that's challenging.
It is.
And that's challenging.
It really is. So when you can kind of shine that light on those parts of yourself that you've put in the basement, it allows you to bring those back online, and it allows you to be more of yourself and realize the potential that you hold. There's so many gifts in our shadow.
I love that.
Just to be able to peel back the layers of who would I be without all the layers or labels that have been put on me through the years. All the titles. Who am I underneath being a mother and a business owner? Or who is really Kristin? Who is really Shannon,
Right.
So it's just very deep, and getting to the truth of who we are, and to be honest with ourselves it's a really interesting place.
It is a very interesting place. It is really freeing. And it's once you get there, you're like, why did it take me so long to get here? But the road to it is so needed, and it is a great journey for you to go on. I love that. And you talked earlier about many women, we struggle with our body image, and like we just talked about disconnection.
Mhm.
from our physical self. So, we go through all our life transitions and things like that. So I guess your somatic work and the shadow work would definitely fall into place with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The body image piece. So, body image struggles often stem from societal conditioning and unresolved stories that we carry in our bodies from the
Mm,
patriarchal programming and what a woman should be. And um, there's a beautiful video I was watching earlier, and it's about acting like a lady. Do this, but don't do that. Say
right,
yes, but don't say no. And
right.
it's like, the moving goalpost of like, I can't win in this. And
Right.
so it's what we deal with as women, and that's so encoded in our bodies. And so somatic work helps us to rewrite those narratives to where
Mm,
it's felt in the body and not in our minds, and we can
mm,
release that all that stored stuff that's in our bodies from centuries and decades of programming, um, and then even tradition or transitioning from menopause into menopause, from being a mother into menopause. Those are actually really beautiful invitations to connect with your wise woman and your
mm,
sovereignty beyond what we've ever been told. And a really key piece, I think, came with this for myself this year. I turned
mhm.
40 this year, and I just remember, growing up thinking that 40 just seemed like a really powerful place in a woman's life because
Right. Mhm.
she either left her husband or she started a new career or she did something or she moved out of the country. She did something big.
Right.
Like
She
there was
did something
always this big
powerful.
thing, right?
Right. It was something amazing she did at 40 that the light bulb came on.
It's like she just said, you know what? Enough of this.
Enough
And
of this.
yeah,
I'm doing
I'm
me.
doing me. Yeah. And it's like something
Exactly.
just finally clicks. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's really through, even if it's unconscious, it is that shadow work that we can kind of come face to face with
Mhm.
our fears and the shame that's tied to aging and being able to embrace the the power and the timing of what comes in that transformation of moving
Right.
from the mother to the mate or to the menopause crone archetype per se.
Right. Because, when I heard about menopause, you thought that was the end of it.
Yeah,
Menopause was horrible. It was something that, I'm learning now as I'm going through the phase, no one really talked about it. So when you went
yeah,
through that phase, you thought that, oh, you're old and you're useless and you're all of these things. And now I'm realizing, no, that is
mm,
you're transitioning to something beautiful. It's like a transition. And so as I'm
yeah,
really researching about it and really learning about it, I'm like, this is just another phase of being a woman. And it should not be
absolutely.
something that's just looked at as a bad phase, but like you said, something that we're conditioned to look at. Now you're in your 50s or have you going into your 60s and this is a bad thing, but it's really not. It's
It's
another
really
beautiful
not.
phase of you being a woman and transitioning. So
Yep.
absolutely love it. It's not
Yeah.
good, it's not fun,
Yep.
but is that part. So
Yep.
now, what advice would you give women who are interested in, exploring somatic practices but don't know where to start?
So start with curiosity and self compassion.
Mm.
Your body already knows the way. You just need to start listening. One of
Mm.
the simplest ways to tune into your breath is by placing your hands on your lower belly. I
Mhm.
also call this the womb space.
Mhm.
And just take some deep inhales and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I need right now?
Mhm.
A lot of the practices that I take my clients through, um, they could be just simple self touch, giving yourself a hold, like a hug and some squeezes.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
this simple. There's such a lack of connection in the world right now,
Mm. Mhm.
and if we could start to just bring in more of that for ourselves,
Mhm.
um, I just think we would be a lot better for it,
Yeah.
And and then journaling. I love to give journal prompts and movement exercises to just help women to rediscover their own sense of reverence and for their bodies, and then being able to reclaim their body as their temple.
Mm.
It's something that's always being, you know, our kids borrow it for 9 months, and we tend to do all these things, for our husband, or we do these things, it's always about everybody else, right? And we
Right.
tend to not tend to our bodies for
Right.
ourselves, or remember that this is our body,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
um and it's
It was
not
ours
even
first.
conscious half the time, but no
Mm-hmm.
matter its shape and size and age, that this is still, our body. And so movement is a really beautiful entry point to just,
Mm-hmm.
put on a song, let yourself dance, and just
Mm-hmm.
look at yourself in the mirror, without judgment, and just
Yeah.
really connect with who you are. And, it's not about being perfectly choreographed or,
Mm-hmm.
doing the right thing. It's really just being and inhabiting your whole body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if you want more guidance, of course, working with a somatic practitioner
Mm-hmm.
can help you go deeper to
Yeah.
develop the safety. So you're really supported.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. And then but truly the most important step is just giving yourself permission to explore without needing to figure it all out, without needing to have all the answers.
I love that.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just being open and curious.
That's a big step. That's the biggest step of all.
Yeah.
So what is in store for Kristin coming up next? What's in store for you next?
So right now I am working with clients one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm putting together a group program that will be launching in January
Mm-hmm.
called Embodied Radiance. And
Okay.
so you can look out for that very soon. And I'm also getting ready to put together a women's circle, and
Okay.
that will be in Marietta, Georgia, here.
Okay.
Just to bring back the connection and support of having a woman tribe,
Yeah.
and being able to
Mm-hmm.
have these conversations, the conversations that aren't talked about,
Right.
like the 3 M's of menstruation, miscarriage, and menopause. Those are like the
Mm.
3 taboos that no one's talking about. And
Right.
why not be talking about it,
Right.
But to be able to open up the space for women to have a safe space to where they can come and talk about these things and be witnessed in their experience.
I love that. Okay. And I will make sure to put all your information inside of the show notes so that everyone can contact you. And I'm looking forward to your work because I'm here in Georgia. So we will look forward to that. And you need to be writing a book, girl. You have some good information. So I'm loving
Thank
all of
you.
that. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. And
Thank you.
we'll continue it later on.
Okay. I appreciate you bringing me on. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen in. It really helps new listeners find us and join our wellness community. Disclaimer: I am not a licensed mental health professional. The information provided here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you need help, please consult a qualified mental health professional